So let's get started. There's really only two items on the agenda this evening, and it deals with um, general pre-ride things that habits that you should kind of do before a ride, both as a rider and ride leader. And then we're going to talk about situations. And I've asked John to help with the first part and Rob with the second part, situations on rides where we have an issue and, what it could be an accident. It could be someone with an extremely high heart rate. We saw some of that during COVID. It could be dehydration. It could be one of many, many things. So I just want to make sure that all ride leaders understand, their latitude and learn from each other in situations like that. I've personally, I've I've been on rides where people bonked, so you gotta treat the patient, so to speak. And in more severe cases, you have to call family members 911. So I think it's a very important topic and one that I'm sure we all have experiences with where we can share. So before I get started, did anyone have any questions?
On that topic, there are some people I've noticed who decide to be private. I don't want anyone on the ride. I don't have an emergency contact or their cell phone.
I think if in the Wild Apricot membership, there's emergency contact numbers. In also when you sign up for a ride, that contact has an emergency contact number. We also, we're offering a 20% discount with the road ID that we just sent out, so people can actually wear a bracelet with all kinds.
So I think, Pat, the point that Joel's trying to make is that there's an option when you register your details to have your listing be private. And of course that defeats the purpose of having the emergency contact information. And I believe this has come up before, and I think we've encouraged people to make sure that they don't show private. But the thing is, I think the reason for the setting is that I guess in some clubs you could have public access to the membership list, which we do not. So I don't think there's an issue with, that people who want to keep their contact details private need to do that, because you can only access the membership list when you have a membership.
Yeah, if that's the case, that's a real problem. So John, offline, you and I, we should talk about how to fix that. Communication out or turn the feature off. We'll talk to Rob Leitner, see what he can do. So great point, Joel. Thank you for bringing that up. So John, do you want to kick off?
Sure. So yeah, it's nothing really, earth shattering. Can I share my screen?
You can.
Let's try it. And you have to looks like you have to grant me permission. You can disable participant screen sharing.
Let's look for that feature. I don't see.
All right, that's fine. I can just go over it. It's nothing like.
You can make him a co-host.
No, it should be fine now. I found this.
Okay.
Okay. There we go. Nice.
I started to sweat.
All right, so this is my summary here. So I always say in advance of leading a ride, make sure that you sync the route. I've forgotten to do that on any number of occasions. And by the way, I don't think this is the case with Garmin, but with Wahoo, there is a way to load the route without Wi-Fi access. So if anybody has a Wahoo and wants to know how to do that, I have the instructions. And then review the list of registered riders, and I always do that to make sure look for people that I don't know. And if there's people that I don't know, then the next part is gathering before the ride. I always greet everyone, and I make sure I introduce myself to anybody that I don't know. That obviously would include new riders. And if it's somebody that I don't recognize, I'll ask them, is this your first ride? You know, or how many times have you ridden with the group? And that brings me to the next point, which is the kind of doing a quick assessment of their equipment and their ability. And usually this is just looking at the bike, making sure it's okay. We had a rider show up one time that had taken her bike off the trainer and her chain was not around the cassette, so that would have been a problem. And then ask them, you know, so how far do you normally ride? About how fast do you normally ride? And if somebody's too fast for the group, for example, like the BC group on Tuesdays, we're going to probably ride 14, 15. Well, I typically ride 16, 17. And I just, you know, you can always give them the option of riding with the B plus group if they want. And then decide how to split the group. Again, the BC group on Tuesdays is a good example. We typically have a large group. The group, they really do a good job of figuring out how they're going to split up. And we will frequently end up with 3 groups. So, and I wouldn't be surprised if we did tomorrow. And I just want to make sure that each of those 3 groups, I'm probably going to be in the middle. I want to make sure that there's somebody in the front group that has the directions and is, you know, keeping an eye on everybody. And I want to make sure there's somebody in the back of the group. And I think Karen Less is actually leading the ride tomorrow night, so she'll probably be in the trailing group. So I just want to make sure there's somebody. If we split up into 2 or 3 groups, there's somebody in each group that has the route and has, you know, some ability to lead the group, to lead that smaller group. And then the safety discussion before we get started, it's the usual stuff, hazards on the road, when there are cars single file, a lesson that many people still haven't learned. The big one I think that we have not done very well with is the no drop concept. And the way you make sure that the ride is no drop is to keep an eye on the people in back of you. And if there's a gap, yell out gap. And then I always let everybody know everybody's responsible for communicating up and down the line. Communicate hazards from the front back, communicate cars from the back to the front. Take the lane if you're doing a left-hand turn, that comes from the back. And then especially make sure that we don't leave somebody in the back who's doesn't have somebody riding with them. We left poor Russ Messerall on the side of the road by himself one week because nobody was keeping an eye on him. So yeah, so that's it. That's my pre-ride planning. Any comments, questions?
John, I don't know. I don't have a Wahoo. It sounds like you do. But on your first point, for Garmin, if you click pin the ride and an update to the route is done after you've already, you have the route pinned, say you change it because there is a road out hazard and you change the route. With a Garmin, it'll automatically upload the ride with any changes that are made. I'm not sure if that happens with Wahoo because I don't have one.
Yeah, I don't believe so, Rob. I believe if the route gets updated between the time you sync it and the time the ride, then you have to resync your Wahoo. But you just have to resync it. If the ride gets updated, then it's already pinned. You just hit sync and it'll resync the ride along with any changes.
Okay.
Wait 1 second. I have an old 810 Garmin. I only have what do you call it? A physical wire connection. So if the route is updated, I have to physically delete it and then re-download it. Otherwise, I have 2 and I don't know which one's current.
Are you pinning the ride, Joel?
I don't know if I have that option. That's interesting.
Sure you do. When you go to the route in the upper left-hand corner, when you open up the file, it'll say pin or pinned.
Oh wait,
if you hit pin, that'll automatically change the route if any changes are made to the route.
So this is pinning in the Garmin app.
No, in Ride with GPS.
Ride with GPS.
All right, so I can. if I pin it on my phone, you're talking about ride with GPS on my phone?
Well, either the phone or the computer.
Either the phone or your computer.
Yeah, but if I pin it to my phone, the only way I connect with my 810 Garmin is with a physical cable plugged into my PC. I have no options, so I don't have. There is some Bluetooth connectivity, but I'm not sure I can get from my phone to my Garmin.
I haven't done it that way, so I can't answer your question.
All right, let me make a note and I will research.
Okay.
I've got a comment about some of the club riders. Experienced riders have been with the club for a long time. You mentioned to people, please stay single file on busy roads, but yet I see people going out towards the double yellow line, people riding 2-3 abreast, chatting. And to me, that's very dangerous on busy roads.
So the solution is to make sure you have Diane Wright in the rides, and she's more than happy to yell at them.
Well, yeah, I mean, as a ride leader, and it's one of the most difficult conversations you have, right? You have to tell someone they did something wrong. And most people would accept, you know, if you had a conversation with them, either if it was really egregious, you know, pull them over on a stop and have a quick chat, or after the ride. I know a lot of guys talk and ride leaders, they talk to the riders after the ride, you know, if they did something wrong, you know, but for sure, you know, on busy roads, 2-cross, it goes against the grain of everything we're trying to instill from a safety perspective. Plus, it aggravates drivers and it can make it a really bad situation. So as a ride leader, you absolutely have the right to say something, and, you know, there's no retaliation. If people, you know, take it the wrong way or they get really mad and cause a problem, then you can block, or you can suspend them from a future ride or whatever. These are all things that I think I've read somewhere in the JST website. Maybe I'm not 100% right, but
No, you're right, Pat. Yes, usually it's like an egregious, you know, error that the person has made repeatedly, like a single incident. You're not going to suspend the person's right to ride, but if it's, you know, a consistent occurrence, then that opportunity exists.
yeah, and I would say error on anything that deals with the safety of the group. You know, that a conversation has to happen. And if you're not comfortable with that, you know, let John and I know and we could help out. Okay. Anything else from a safety perspective or pre-ride planning? And I'm sure you will.
I don't know if this is pre-ride planning or not, but one thing that I wanted to like, that I'm not crazy about how things are going, is when we have those on Sundays at BCC, the A/B plus rides. I find it hard to split a group. Like, you know, John, when you're saying you guys, seems like your folks are, you know, whatever, maybe that's just more in tune with how to do that. But like, I've had a couple of rides where, you know, it's a good sized group, and too many for one. You know, like if I'm leading, at least I don't want to have, you know, so many people to pay attention to. So it's too many for my feeble brain. But, you know, and then you try to get people to split and no one does, you know, that they don't. And then sometimes on like Thursday nights, I know Cheryl had done this a few times because there's like, you know, 1 million people. So she'll just do it alphabetically or something and split it that way. But, you know, for me, like as a, you know, and I'm sure we all do this, I'm not saying it's accurate or not, but I might look and say, okay, these people would probably be a good group and those people would probably, you know, but you know, you can't, it's hard for me to, I don't want to do that. You know, like, I mean, someone who might be a strong rider is riding a B plus ride because they want to take it easy today. They you know, it's an A rider and they know, you know, they're not, you know, that's what they want to do, or somebody else is moving up and they want to try it. And I don't want to interfere with, you know, with that kind of stuff. So, and I'll just throw this out, and it's maybe not the right place for it, but like we used to have more rides, like an A ride and a B ride. And a lot of times, I've been doing those rides for a number of years. A lot of times, if there's not enough A's, but there is enough B's or B pluses or whatever, it's easy to combine, because if I'm leading the B plus and there's some A riders there, I'll try to talk them out of coming with us if they want to go fast. And if they don't want to go fast, they want to come along, then it's really easy to combine, but I find it not easy to split.
So Hank, I think that's a good point, and we've had obviously some email discussion about the whole Thursday night or the Sunday morning AV plus group, and it's really just a matter of pragmatics, that it's just been really hard for me to find or Barb to find A ride leaders, and so we originally just listed a B plus ride on Sundays. And then, somebody said, what about the A riders? What are they supposed to do? Okay, well, we'll make it A B plus. Well, now we're looking for maybe split it, but then we have to find A group, A pace ride leaders. So I'm okay with, we can do that. We can list a separate A ride. I just need a few people to step up and volunteer to lead them. Mike Street, I think
he would.
said he would be interested.
And you could start it with, leave it blank for a ride leader, and people can volunteer each week. And then they could decide to Hank's point, because I've been on some of Hank's rides where, it's a mixed group, and some days you get some 4 or 5 A riders in the B plus, and if those guys want to move, Hank's been very good at saying, okay, you can split, but Pat, you lead the ride, or Rob, you lead the ride, or whatever, and that's been successful, and that was communicated like right out of the before the ride started. So, and we've also seen, I know Rob Nuara, or not Rob Nuara, who was it? Someone, maybe it was Rob. He came to the ride knowing that it was a large group, and he said, okay, here are the two groups. There was no debate or discussion. You just said, here's the two groups, and you're the leader of Group B, and it worked out fine. So I don't know. Anybody else have experience with that and want to share what you've done?
I've had situations where people just thought they were a little more ambitious than they really had the ability to be, and ended up overcommitting.
Yeah.
And they said, well, if I always have the other group behind me, but then you have someone sort of by themselves.
Well, you don't want, that's the whole point of a no drop ride. We don't keep an eye on the guy in back.
Yeah, but he's in the middle.
Oh, okay. Yeah. That does happen occasionally. Well, again, the BC group is a good example. What we generally do is we'll go out together, and then we'll, obviously, how the route goes. We go up Georgia Road, we turn right on Nomico, and at the top of the hill in Nomico where we hit Eli Harmony, everybody's already kind of strung out. So you can tell who wants to ride faster and who wants to ride slower. So at that point, I just say, okay, you guys, we're going to stay here. You guys go ahead. And then, then I'll take a group, and then, then the tail end of the group comes up, and they'll stay in the back.
I'd like to say, I agree with Hank. When I lead an A, B plus ride, I start out by saying I'm a B plus rider. So this is a B plus ride. This is not an A ride. If you want an A ride, you can have an A ride, but this is not it. So I would prefer that the ride is not together. And Thursday night's working out really well now that Mike Street has taken on an A ride. And we actually do have a really good B plus ride. So I would prefer that it just be a B plus ride, and you have an A ride with a ride leader needed. And then somebody who signs up for that ride will be the ride leader.
Okay. I'm okay with doing that, Cheryl.
Okay.
Yeah. And I could add the A rides for, I could split them for the month of July. Let's see how it goes. See if we get some volunteers.
Okay.
Or I'll just volunteer Joel to lead the A group. Then they'll say, okay, we'll ride with the B plus.
But I think the way that Cheryl handled it, I mean, I was on the ride Sunday, and she said, this is a B plus pace, and there was a combined A riders and B plus riders, and everybody, managed to the B plus pace. And really nobody had any issues to it because they know from the onset that that's what the ride was going to be. And I think Hank said it before, sometimes you may be an A rider, but maybe that day you didn't want to do an A pace. So a B plus ride was totally sufficient for them. Maybe they're tired, maybe they had a busy week or whatever the case may be. But when you state it up front and say this is going to be the expectation, then everybody should adhere to the ride leaders, guidelines. And if they don't, then at a certain point, maybe you stop and pull over and say, hey, listen, guys, obviously you don't want to go at this pace. You want to go faster. Then, you then split off and then have somebody lead that group of riders, right? I mean, there's no right answer to this, but I think the way that people are managing it, is, the way to do it.
When I was in Italy with Hotel Dori, the first day there isn't formal rides. There was sort of this informal ride, and they had a unique way of breaking it up. One of the ride leaders went ahead at the top of the hill, and then the whole group was following. And at a certain point, he stepped in and said, "You're in the second group."
All right, just in the essence of time, I know Rob, we'll go another couple minutes on this subject and then switch over to the other subject. Just one thing too that we've noticed that's come to my attention as well is when we're riding in a group, the group gets splintered and spread out. And when you're on a single lane road, that makes it so much harder for cars to pass. So they have to pass multiple times instead of just once, and it's actually kind of dangerous. So that's something if we can just, again, I'm not pushing pace line here, but I'm pushing, if you're riding in a group, don't have 10 lengths in between riders. That's not the purpose. And actually it's quite dangerous, especially on roads where there's not a lot of room. So just keep that in mind.
Right, when you call car back, everybody, if they are, spread out into the road of traffic, they should adhere that they get back in the line. That way the cars can pass, because the last thing you want to have is irate drivers. Either one, they're going to do something stupid. B, they're going to get mad at the, cyclist. They can find out, who the group is, and, you don't want bad publicity as well. So it's important from a safety factor as well as from a, just a courtesy. You just go in single file.
Many times when I'm leading, I'm the first to yell "car back," and I don't know, maybe I have a better mirror or something, but someone's not paying attention.
But that's a ride leader kind of, not that you did anything wrong, Joel, but it's a ride leader thing where if people aren't calling back, like if someone did that to me and the car was close, I'd be really ticked off. So that's, again, education. People may not realize they have to say car back, but if you're the ride leader, if you're leading and you call car back, well, that's a problem. So yeah, that's, again, a conversation with the people before the ride. So that's a great point.
I find the
Go ahead. Sorry, Eric.
I find the Garmin those radar detectors for the backlights very, very helpful.
Mm-hmm.
It allows me to tell people when they can take the lane. I'll get in the back when we have to make a turn, and we can take the lane in safely because I know nobody's coming. And if we have to make a turn, I know someone's coming. I can shout it out. I know they're expensive, but as a ride leader, I think it's a very valuable tool.
I just got one 2 weeks ago, and it's great, except if there's a rider to the left of me, behind me, then it blocks some of the radar signal to the cars. But I have a very good, my problem is I had a very good mirror, but sometimes I forget to look. Every time the radar device beeps, first of all, I'll tell people around me there's a car. I'll look really quickly and announce that there's a car there. I don't just rely, it's very helpful. I love it.
Okay. Does anybody have anything else regarding pre-ride, in-ride?
Very quickly, we were mentioning what happens after you've downloaded a route to your, and pinned a route to your GPS device, and then there's an update, okay? What about the Ride with GPS app on the phone? Does that update, or do you have to go back and manually do it?
No, that will update the route. If the route is updated in Ride with GPS, it'll update on your computer, on the phone, but your device may have an older route. I know with the Wahoo, it stores the route directly in the Wahoo. If there's an update, then you just have to resync it to make sure that the updated route gets stored in the device.
Okay,
And again, there is a way to load. You can load a route directly to the Wahoo from your phone without Wi-Fi or computer or anything, right? So you can do that in the park. I've shown many people how to do it. It's super simple. Well, I think it's simple. I know it'll be,
So if anyone has
it's a
questions,
technical challenge for some people.
so if anyone has questions in that space, John's your man.
For the Wahoo, only for the Wahoo.
Okay. Anything else? If not, we'll hand it over to Rob.
Okay. So I didn't prepare a printed form, but if you want me to share my screen, I'll show you in our website all the information that I'm going to refer to in case of an accident or a medical emergency. So if I have that available, I'll do that.
Nice. I like when things work.
You see my screen?
Yes,
All right. So under rides, we have all these important things on here. Ride calendar, report a pothole. Then in resources, here's what we have: resource guidelines. So I'm going to refer to the ride leader guidelines. And in section 2.4 in here is a pretty detailed information as to what to do for accidents and medical emergencies. Unfortunately, these things are going to occur. We just had an incident yesterday on one of the rides, and we may have been on rides where, somebody, went down and had an accident, or there's a medical emergency. It's going to happen. Maybe it's not going to happen when you're a ride leader, but as ride leaders, we all should be aware of, what to do and what not to do during the course of an accident. So, first and foremost, if there's an accident, someone has to take charge. This is not a group effort where it's a cut, do you want to do it? Do you want to do it? You don't poll everybody. So the ride leader takes charge, and the ride leader, starts directing people. So if somebody, let's use the incident that somebody fell and they're in the street. Okay. Somebody should be designated by the ride leader to direct traffic or halt traffic. That way, the person is not going to be, God forbid, run over by a vehicle as they're laying in the middle of the street. Because you don't know if that person should be moved, they're capable of being moved, or what the severity of that injury is. Usually, no matter what happens, even if it's a bad crash, the person who's on the ground, after they get their wits back, they all say, I'm okay, I could get up. But that's not always true. Some of them shouldn't get up. If it's very bad and the person, hit their head and they've got knocked out for, any point in time, well, then you probably need medical assistance to be called, and you call 911, and they will make the decision can and when that person can be moved. So one, somebody has to direct traffic and flag people and stop traffic until the police get there, and then they take over, and then EMS comes, and then they'll determine what's the status of that individual and what needs to be done. We've also found it's very important to take pictures of the incident. Most importantly, if there was a pothole or something that caused it, or debris that was in the road, the more visual content that we have, the better off we'd be in the event of any insurance claims that the person may need to file and things of that nature. You know, a video could be done. So again, this is not the ride leader's responsibility, but maybe the ride leader says, hey, listen, you know, could you do, you know, this, and could you take the pictures, or could you take a video? And then we also need to know exactly where it happened. You know, you just can't say, you know, there was a crash on Georgia Road. Well, you know, Georgia Road, you know, is pretty big. A lot of roads go for many miles, so we need some boundaries. So, you know, get some of the boundaries down and say, well, you know, it happened between this point and that point. So the more,
Rob, there's unique numbers on telephone poles.
that's correct. Yes, so great point, Joel. All the telephone poles have a metal sticker on there that's nailed in, and it has the abbreviation for the town or township that you're in, and it also has I think it's a mile marker on there, Joel, as well.
There's the older ones have the suffix with the address. A lot of the new poles don't have that anymore.
Okay. But we should get cross streets or look at the telephone poles, to Joel's point. So we should, you know, have a bearing as to exactly where it is, and have that person who's doing that write down that information. So instruct that person, you know, to make sure that they're getting as detailed information as they can in terms of where the accident, you know, occurred. And they're taking, you know, somebody else may be taking pictures and things like that as well. Then, you know, once it's determined what the status of the rider is, maybe there was no medical personnel needed, the cops weren't needed, maybe it was just some road rash and abrasions, and the person thinks that they could ride. Well, let's go on to that avenue first. You have to make a determination, is that person capable of riding? Is their bike in good shape? Are they physically in good shape? Or they have a conscious mind to ride or not? And sometimes you may have to make the determination that that person, you know, can't ride. And then, to the point we made earlier, then somebody needs to be called to pick that person up and get them, you know, back to their home base. If that's the case, then somebody should stay with that person until the person comes to pick them up. And sometimes what will happen is they'll say, no, I'm all right. And I called, you know, my next of kin, they're coming. And by and large, you know, you leave, continue the ride, and they elect to ride home. Not a good situation. You know, we don't want that to occur. So we probably should have two people stay back with that individual who was injured, for the point being that, God forbid, if something happens to the one rider who's staying back, there's still a backup for that rider to make sure that the person is adequately taken care of. So, and then you just have to select, you know, it doesn't have to be the ride leader who stays back. It just has to be two volunteers from the ride who stay back with that rider and get them back to their home base, maybe back to the park, maybe back to their home, whatever the case may be.
And the logistics of securing the bicycle.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Because we've had people who have been maybe not, you know, knocked out, but they're woozy. And after a few minutes, then they say, well, they're okay to ride. And that's kind of a hard determination to make. Better to err on the side of caution and have somebody, you know, pick them up.
A good practice would be check the helmet first. You know, Bill Winterbottom, when he crashed last year, he says, I'm okay. So let me see your helmet. It was busted, and turned out he had a concussion, and he was, you know, you got to check the helmet. If there's even the slightest crack, the rider needs to be shut down, because there's brain bleeding, this, that. I mean, it's happened to probably all of us at some point.
You don't know if there's internal injuries that are happening that are not even evident
Right.
to the layman.
Yep.
My incident in the parking lot, my helmet was not cracked, but on the point of impact, it was pushed in almost 1/8 of an inch.
Cracked, dented.
foam.
If
It
there's a
wasn't
mark,
cracked.
yeah.
The
If
foam
there's a mark,
pushed
you
in.
know, that's it. If someone hits their head, you know, they shut them down. That should be the general guidance here.
Right. Now, Bill, in that instance, Bill was sitting on a log on the side of the road, and he couldn't even sit up. He was wobbling, just sitting there, and he was insisting that he was okay and didn't want to go
Right.
into the ambulance. I said, "No, you're going into the ambulance. There's no question about it."
Yeah.
So somebody, needs to take charge, because it could be multiple people who are, injured on an accident. Fortunately, or if you want to call it fortunately, a lot of the accidents occur and it's one person who gets injured. Sometimes it's more than one person. So you're dealing with a lot of different scenarios. And, we're not medical professionals. You may have, some of our members are doctors, but they're not going to take on the liability of saying this person is okay to ride, and nor should they. That's why you call 911 and have EMS, come to the scene in the event that is determined that that's the right course of action. Person has scrapes and bruises, and they're okay to ride. Well, then you make that determination that person is capable of getting back to the park, and then you just make sure that they're with somebody, or they stay with the group, and the group goes usually at a slower pace to make sure that person gets back. In the event that there is an accident, then someone, it doesn't have to be the ride leader, but somebody, and it usually is the ride leader's responsibility, they have to fill out an accident report. Now, the accident report, if you're not familiar with it, is available on our website. If you click under members and then go to insurance documents, right there, and then you go to here where it says silent sport incident reporting form, you click on that, and this is what comes up. So, and it's an electronic form, and you could, type in all of the information with the shaded parts that are required for it to be filled out. Once it's filled out in its entirety here, and this it's very simple to do. It takes all of maybe 5 minutes to do, but you want to be as precise as possible on here. Then this has to be sent to, right now it's the president, and that'd be Paul. Paul has to read it, look at it. He has to sign it as president of the club, and then he forwards it on to our insurance carrier, which is listed on the bottom of the form here for their records. And if anything needs to be reimbursement beyond their own insurance policies for the individual, then there's a record on file for our insurance company to follow up for any other out-of-pocket that they may need to be reimbursing that person. So everything is available online. You fill that out, and then usually I always found a good idea to let the board members know, in particular the president and vice president, that if you're the ride leader, hey, listen, there was an accident today. You send them a quick email, or and say, I'll be filling out the incident report, sending it on to you, but you may be needing to be aware that this is coming your way. And that's what needs to be done. I mean, it's pretty straightforward. And unfortunately, these things are going to happen. Either we've seen it or, been a ride leader when it does happen. But the big thing in here that we have in bold letters, when you go back to the ride leader guidelines on here, is it says, don't move the person until you know that they're physically able to get up, because you don't know what's going on inside the person. They may appear fine, but we said before, there could be internal injuries that aren't apparent. I had somebody on a ride, it wasn't a club ride, they hit a pothole, they fell, hit their hip, had road rash, a little woozy, may have been knocked out, so we took them to the hospital. And as they were in the hospital, their hip blew up to the size of almost like a cantaloupe, and they had internal bleeding. And this happened about an hour after the accident occurred. So you don't know what's going on because, the person felt good after a while. They were lucid, and they were just obviously achy, but they didn't know that they had any internal injuries going on. And they said it's a good thing we took them to the emergency room because they caught it in time and had to do, a minor procedure to stop the bleeding internally. So it's all documented here. Hopefully you never have to use it, but you should be aware of it and be aware of how to handle the situation. Like I said earlier, the ride leader is responsible to be the gatekeeper, but you don't have to perform all these tasks. So you can delegate and then you manage the situation. Especially if you have more than one injured person, you need to have somebody of sound mind to, start making the decision as to what, should occur. Any questions?
When I had an incident about 6-7 years ago. Myself and Ron Daggett were riding by ourselves midweek on Spring Road in Millstone, and a deer shot out and took Ron down. He landed on his head. He was out for 5 minutes, and he ended up also breaking his hip. The thing that I didn't do correctly, I never checked his pulse while he was out to see to make sure he was breathing and or try CPR, what little I knew of it. So you don't really know when the thing happens.
Yeah.
You sort of, some panic is in there. The other thing that happened is we had someone with road rash, which is probably the most common injury we occur, and no one had alcohol wipes. So after that, I bought a package, and you get 30, and they don't last long because they evaporate. And I gave it out to 5 other people. So now there's at least 6 of us with alcohol wipes. But it might make sense for each of us to buy it and distribute it.
Great idea.
That's a good idea.
Great idea.
And gauze pad. And gauze pads last longer than the alcohol wipes. The alcohol wipes in your hot bag is maybe only going to last a season or 2.
Well, what I'm hearing and what I've experienced also, it is a high pressure situation. You have to act fast. And there could be other situations. I don't know if anyone can share, if you've had anyone bonk or dizzy or, any other conditions that cause some action that we can all learn from.
I've bunked on rides, so I could, help out. It's not the most pleasant, thing to happen, but it does, in the heat, sometimes it just, becomes overwhelming. So, when people ask, another rider, are you okay? The normal course of your comment could be, yeah, I'm fine, but you're not. And you know that you're not. Your senses are off, your reactions are slower than they should be. But you have to be, if it happens to yourself, you have to be conscious as to what's going on, and you have to be honest overall. And say, I'm not feeling up to par. Or if the person's still saying I'm okay, and you see that the person is, you've ridden with them before, you kind of know what their capabilities are, and they just seem off at that point, just call mechanical, pull over to the side of the road. That gets everybody to stop them, just say mechanical, and somebody then should help that person. Sometimes they just need to be rehydrated, sometimes they need electrolytes, sometimes they need something to eat or whatever, and after a period of time they start to feel better and their senses are coming back. Maybe they're able to ride again. If not, then the course of action that we said before has to happen, where somebody needs to get them back, and usually you call for backup assistance for the person to come be picked up by somebody.
Another good thing here, if you bonk, there's only one reason. You went through a lot of sweat. Everyone sweats differently, different temperatures. I mean, your body heats up, you lose fluids. So the way to prevent it is electrolytes in your bottles, even before rides, if it's a hot day. Also carbohydrates on the ride, before, during, and after, and recovery. Next month, I'm hoping to have Hammer Nutrition do a seminar on this for us, because it's such a neglected aspect that it's kind of simple to fix. It's a simple fix. It's just prevention. right? And oftentimes we just don't know what our limits are, or, you know, based on conditions, we don't know how our body will react to it. And yeah, if you don't have the right nutrition, you know, it's a potential problem.
The other thing, the thing about weather, so a route is 40, 50 miles with a rest stop in the middle. If it's 95 degrees and humid, you need more than the rest stop in the middle. So sometimes if you know the route, you know, you could go a mile off and there's a convenience store or something. So sometimes, you know, having 3 stops might be a better solution than trying to force the route.
That's a good point.
I have the situation that's happened, you know, a ton of times. The person isn't really bombed, but they're, you know, they don't want to hang on anymore. They're just tired. They just kind of want to ride slower. And almost always, oh, don't worry about me. You guys just go, you know. And if I'm the ride leader, you know, like, I don't want to do that. I mean, even selfishly, I'll just be torturing myself about, like, oh my God, what happened, you know? So, and it's so usually, you know, then, you know, maybe a split, you know, I'm going to, you know, anybody else want to come? We're going to take it easy, you know, you just have to go slower or something. But that is, and it's almost always, oh, don't worry about me. You guys, I'm going to do my own thing. You know, they always say, you know, I'm experienced, which they are. And, you know, I know my way back, which they do. But it seems like that's happened to me, you know, multiple times.
I had a rider actually argue with me about me staying back with her. I said, no, I'm going to stay back with you.
Yeah.
But she did not want me to. I said, I'm sorry, but that's not my nature to begin with. I'm going to stay back with you. You're the last rider.
Well, it's also club, you know, the club policy is no drop rides, right? So, you know, that has happened, and Hank is spot on. A lot of people say, I have the route, don't worry. And I guess it's a judgment call. If you have like 2 miles left, all right, that might be okay. But if you're, you know, halfway through, then, you know, split off whatever options you have, and, you know, you're accountable for that rider. So yeah.
You know, you have people who ride to the start and then cut off coming back because they're doing the same 30, 40, 60 miles, whatever it is, but they started from their house and ending at their house. But you don't have many choices in these things.
Yeah.
But I think in most of those cases, Joel, they almost always, at least that I'm familiar with, will always let the ride leader know. You know, Steve Shell, for example. Okay, I'm leaving here. I'm not going back to the park. Or like Joe Hughes. You know, they live close to MJT. Or me, I usually ride by the park and then I go home. So Pat does the same thing. So, you know, the last, like we said, the last few miles, if somebody just wants to ride home, I don't think there's a problem with that. Or if somebody wants to pick us up mid-ride, you know, Fred Sweet does that. Abe does that sometimes. So Rob, good. One question on the insurance form. It uses the term incident. Now, if you have something like a medical issue, like Ray Simonian had the high heart rate few Thursdays ago, you know, that wouldn't really qualify as an incident, would it?
Depends. I mean, was there any?
It could. I mean, it doesn't have to be an accident.
Right.
I
Okay.
think you want to err on the side of being cautious, and if something happens, you know, the insurance company, you know, may not need, or the insurer, you know, in that instance, the individual who had the high heart rate may not need to do anything else aside from, you know, getting his heart rate down through his medicine. So there's no other need to have it. But if something eventually happens to the person, God forbid they had a heart attack subsequently to having a rapid heartbeat, then the insurance company should have that on file.
Yep. Okay.
I would err on just filling it out.
Yep.
May never need to act upon it, but better to have it done than not have it done.
Years ago, I remember in the parking lot at BCC, one of the of more experienced guys was going around and he gave me like an individually wrapped aspirin. He just got a whole bunch of them because maybe somebody, got, had a heart issue, and apparently I guess you should have an aspirin if you are having a heart attack that could help you. I don't know. I don't even know if that's 100% true or not, but I said like, wow, what a good idea. You really might save somebody's life. Does anyone know about that, or is that something that we should have around as a, in our little kits?
I think as a liability, we can't be responsible to give someone medication.
Yeah, dispensing, I agree.
Right.
agree.
Yes,
Okay.
that's correct.
But what we could do is we do have a few doctors in the club. We could offline have a chat with them and see what they would recommend. And we could just, make a statement, part of your pre-ride trip, you may want to consider having, as Joel said, moisture pad or gauze or aspirin, something like that, salt pills, whatever it might be.
Well, I'm one
You have
person
to
who
be careful with aspirin package. You can't, because we had this conversation, we were writing this and we are going to put it in there. And I remember we went back and forth on putting that particular item in here. And after our research, it came out to be, if we dispense medicine and something happens to that person, then the club's liable. So you don't want to dispense medicine of any form.
Yeah, no, I didn't say dispense it, but just let it be their option.
Well,
Obviously seek medical advice.
if there's a benefit in it, then you could say people should consult with their doctor, and if
Right.
it's appropriate, they should carry it.
Yeah.
That's right.
It's all in the wording. Perfect, Joel.
Yeah.
That's right.
That's correct.
I may be the guy who was I had a bunch, I handed them out to people, little packets, and said, I just keep it in case. Then someone looked into it and said, there's a liability issue here because this is the United States of America, the most sophisticated, humane civilization that ever existed anywhere in the world. And we can't give too much of a crap for each other or we'll get sued. So I said, okay. So my position is I carry it in case of something that I might need. Maybe at some point, is this something that might be advisable for folks to carry if they check with their doctor? I never pursued it. That seems like an interesting idea, if you want to.
I think each individual has to carry what's appropriate for them.
Yeah.
Based on their consultation with their doctor, and none of us are going to, because we don't know.
Right.
We don't
Right.
know what underlying conditions they have. Even salt, if they have high blood pressure, might throw it higher. I don't know.
Yeah, that's all,
Mhm.
all very true.
If somebody's in a situation where they need aspirin or like a chest pain or something, we should be calling 911,
That's correct.
not giving them aspirin.
Right.
Exactly.
On that note, we have 5 minutes left, so let's try to finish this up at 8. And also before we finish, I hope you guys like this format. I'd like to continue doing this at least once a month. Just pick 1 or 2 subjects that we can all kind of contribute to and learn from. So if you have, and you're passionate about an aspect of being a ride leader, send me a note and then we'll get you on the agenda. And, just like Rob and John did today, they could, kick off the conversations and we can socialize it amongst each other. I think the format's good. We're a club. We have to educate, and we have to educate through ride leaders and many other forums, but for sure ride leaders. And we have to give the ride leaders the tools they need to be, an effective leader, tools and latitude.
I have a suggested topic. The scarcity is ride leaders. And when you split a group up, you're making someone an informal ride leader, and working with that individual, you might get them to cross the line and become a ride leader. Who knows?
Yeah, I mean,
That's a good point.
the board, we're looking at how there's two issues. One, just volunteer, getting people to volunteer in general, and obviously ride leaders. So we're looking at that and trying to come up with at least some ideas on how to. It's probably an age-old problem that's never solved, but we'll try.
I have one more suggestion with volunteers. We changed the renewal questions when someone's renewing their membership and ask them how they would like to volunteer and give them like 5 or 6 choices, you know, the picnic, the whatever the choices that we decide. And then if they say they're not sure, said, have someone call me to help me with this.
Good idea. Good
Yeah,
thought.
that's a good idea.
You know,
Okay.
if you don't ask, you don't get.
Yeah, no, that's part of the problem, for sure. All
Right.
right. Anybody
That's a
else?
good idea.
That's it. I'm done.
No, you're not. Come on, you got a few more.
I'm done.
I'm gonna hold you to that.
Okay.
Can I ask
Save
a
it for
quick
next
question?
time.
Yes, absolutely.
Did something happen to Jose, to Jose?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Eric
Was
could
it an
probably-
accident?
Eric could probably, go.
Yeah, what happened, I was in the rear group with 4 riders. He was up with the faster group, and I guess it was confusing where the turn was because the intersection of the road was Spotswood Gravel Hill Road and Spotswood Gravel Hill Road in Monroe Township. So they had to make a right turn real quickly and they slowed down, and Jose didn't, I guess, I don't know. He didn't react quick enough, hit the wheel in front of him and went down hard.
Ooh,
He broke some ribs in his collarbone.
Ooh.
wow.
Thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
But we didn't move him. We made him stay where he was. We directed traffic and kept him there until the ambulance arrived.
Okay,
And then
good.
did the police take the bicycle?
No, actually, Bill was only 5 miles from home. He rode home, got his car, came back, put the bicycle in his car.
A lot of times the police take the bikes.
Yeah, in this case, the police officer didn't have the right kind of vehicle. He had no room in the back of his vehicle for a bike.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah. Has
Well,
anybody
we-
had a situation where the ride leader actually was involved in the accident? And then, you know, who's like next in command? Like,
That was me, Paul. That was me,
yeah,
Paul.
that's what I
Yeah.
thought. You were the ride leader for that one.
I was
Yeah.
the ride leader for that one. And just
Yeah.
as an FYI, they just declined, the insurance company just declined my claim. They said that a signature is needed on the form, so I have a feeling that you did an electronic signature, that they're not accepting electronic signatures. So
Well,
I,
whatever it is, just send it over to me.
we'll fix it, but
I'll take care of it. Okay, well, good to know.
yeah.
All right, we're at the top of the hour. It's gonna be a busy week. I know I'm tired. So, thank you, everybody. And again, if you have ideas, just push them forward. And if no one, pushes them forward, we'll come up with a couple of ideas. I really don't want to cover more than 1 or 2 things in a subject. This way, we could take our time and just kind of talk about things, so.
So Pat, let me just mention real quick that we do have Barb and I are actually both going to be away this weekend. I'm at Bike Virginia. Barb's doing the summer tour. So if there are, requests for calendar issues, we're going to have limited ability to respond until Barb gets back.
All right, the workaround that is do a group email to everyone, and if you have to, you could post the URL of the new route in there.
Yeah, definitely. That.
So. we
But
can
like
work-
things like ride
without-
leader changes, I'm talking about,
I'm sorry, I said it wasn't gonna contribute anymore.
Okay. But things like ride leader changes, time
Yeah.
changes.
Yeah, but maybe what you do, and the weather doesn't look that great this weekend. So maybe what you do is just send a note out earlier in this week saying, we're going to be out of commission. So any updates you need by Wednesday, end of the day, something like that.
Yep. Okay.
All right. Well, thanks
All right.
for hanging in, and we'll talk again soon.
Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.